Hi everyone, this is Chris from Punk and Paisley, and I'm finally tackling that list of 9 underrated 1960s acts that I promised / threatened you with in my list of underrated bands video. And now what we did in that video was we took a look at an overview of what I think are 9 underrated, potentially underpriced in the vinyl marketplace groups that you can fill out your record collection with what I think is high quality 60s music. Some of this is garagey, some of it is more leaning into psych, sunshine pop, that sort of thing. And these are bands that I think are usually thought of as lightweights and underrated, and I seek to correct that. So that was that video, and then I said I'm going to do this series of 9 videos in which I'm going to tackle each band and highlight portions of their catalog that I think would be really beneficial to you as somebody coming new to the material to fill out your collection, listen to some good music without breaking the bank as well. Which is a bonus, and also to give these bands some props when they've been due. And one of the first bands that I mentioned were these guys, Paul Revere and the Raiders. They're sitting right here in a little stack next to me. I have almost all of these guys' albums, almost all of their output between 63, I think, is the first album, and then 1972, I believe, is the last album worth a damn connected to their sort of classic catalog. All right, so I have all but 2 of those albums. I do not have the one that came out in 72, and I do not have the 1968 album, Going to Memphis. The title probably put me off when I was collecting this stuff in the late 80s through the 90s, and I was picking these things up very cheaply. I'm looking at price tags on here. Some of them are 93 cents, 90 odd cents, so that'll round up to $1 with sales tax. And nothing on here had a price tag of more than $4. That's not the case any longer. I'm going to, at the end of the video, run through some detail of how much these records are going to cost you these days for a VG Plus copy. I think that's a good way to go about doing this. I've given some thought to what are these 9 videos going to look like? And I think I came up with a format. And so Paul Revere and the Raiders get together in 1958. I stated 1959 in the previous video, but it's 1958. They're an instrumental band at first. And then they just become a powerhouse and constant presence on 60s radio, TV, and in record stores. They were constantly a presence on a Dick Clark show called Where the Action Is, and a few other Dick Clark productions as the sort of house band. They were related to a lot of commercial pushing of car culture and model cars and a lot of things in which the Raiders were just a constant presence and a big influence, I think, on Nuggets style, garage rock, garage into early psych, and just, I think, good rock moving into hard rock when we get into the late 60s. So I'd like to take a look more specifically at their catalog and suggest some things for you to buy. Now, with a lot of the bands that are on this list, there's only going to be 1 or 2 particular gems that I'm going to highlight for you. But in the case of the Raiders, if you enjoy garage rock, you enjoy rock and roll, you enjoy, as the 60s got a little more complex, as you got a little bit more melodic pop moving in a bit of a more progressive direction, if you're looking for a little bit more of studio trickery, there's no Sgt. Pepper, there's no Revolver in the Raiders catalog. But there is some movement in that direction in the mid to late 60s where you start to get some influences of, there's some phasing, there's some deeper fuzz, there's even some heavy hard rock riffing. toward the end of the 60s. So those are things that might well interest you. And honestly, this video is probably going to be the least useful. This and the Ventures, when I get to the Ventures video in the series of 9. This video is going to be the least useful in terms of discriminating, oh, that's the good album, and this one's probably not going to appeal to viewers of the channel, because I think that virtually everything in their catalog is going to have portions of the album, if not the entire album, is going to appeal to people who like garage rock, 60s rock, fuzz, that sort of thing. A couple of their tracks make it to the official Nuggets releases. So you have their earliest stuff. They're doing things like covering Louie Louie. They do Louie Go Home. Their earliest single that was a hit was an earlier rock and roll song from 1961, a single titled Like Long Hair that barely cracked the top 40 in the US. I don't know that you necessarily need to start there, but by about 1964-65, you're getting hits like Just Like Me, and what else is on here? They're covering Donovan Catch the Wind. They're covering the Stones' Satisfaction, and that Steppin' Out is on this album, Just Like Us, which is an absolute Nuggets classic. Inspired so many garage bands with songs like Steppin' Out and Just Like Me and Kicks. You're getting these songs where you've got the angry young white man who's referring to his woman in the sense that an elderly blues statesman might, about his woman done him wrong. And this is a theme that is just permeating 60s garage lyrics and song topics. That woman done me wrong. She runs around. Who's it going to be, him or me? These are all covered by the earlier phase of the Raiders, and who were so influential because they were on TV and radio all the time, that a lot of those raw, rare garage singles that you like and that get compiled and that you dig up as boulders and nuggets and all that other stuff, pebbles, those people were listening to these guys. These are some of the originators of that. They're from Boise, Idaho. They are and can be correctly connected to the Pacific Northwest rock scene that includes the Sonics and the non-Bob Marley Wailers, who a lot of you probably love. I'm not going to say that most Paul Revere and the Raiders material is as tough, is as fuzzy, is as sharply produced as the wildest screaming Wailers and Sonics tracks. However, there is some sharpness and there is some screaming, and I do think that there are plenty of Raiders tracks that would appeal to you. Now, through a lot of the Raiders history, and we're kind of going through. Kicks is just an excellent album. Spirit of '67 is an excellent album. Revolution is an excellent album. And these Revolution, I had to shell out a big $4 for apparently at some point in probably the 1990s. These are wonderful sounding albums. They are produced, a lot of the stuff is produced in this period by Terry Melcher, who produced a lot of the really well-known Byrds catalog, including their first 2 hit albums. And it's the same Terry Melcher who was associated with the Beach Boys, and the same Terry Melcher who was going to the Spahn Ranch and offering Charles Manson possibly a record contract, and that falls through. And this makes Charlie unhappy, and there were consequences for that. So that was that Terry Melcher. And Terry Melcher's aim with his Raiders production was that he was going to give the world a sound that was between the Beach Boys. Now, this is not Pet Sounds Beach Boys. This is not Smile Beach Boys. This is not California Girls. This is more I Get Around Beach Boys, right? The more sort of rockin', updated guitar, vocal harmony, out of doo-wop, but beyond doo-wop, Beach Boys car culture and surfing culture stuff. So he's going to take the fullness of that sound, and he wanted to combine it with Rolling Stones production, particularly fuzzy production on things like I Can't Get No Satisfaction. And so you're melding those, so you get this very full sound, often augmented with layers of a little bit more sophisticated instrumentation. You're getting various stringed instruments. You're getting the occasional horn hits. You're getting organ. You're getting all this stuff on a lot of these tracks. And to my ears, it sounds wonderful. And these Columbia albums, they just sound so good. If you enjoy 60s rock and roll and rock, this is just such well-produced stuff. Now, there is one song in the catalog, I believe it's An Undecided Man, which was produced by freaky electronics experimenter Mort Garson, who many of you, the collectibles, the most collectible stuff from him. There's the Black Mass album, which is attributed to Lucifer, which I've never been fortunate enough to stumble across a vinyl copy of. And there's the Wazard of Ids. Is it the Wazard of Id or the Wazard of Is? I'll get it right in the graphic on the video. And that stuff's wonderful. And I have downloads of that. I don't have that on vinyl. But that's really cool, wild out there stuff. So you got at least one track that's Mort Garson produced, which is pretty damn cool. And then Mark Lindsay, who more and more becomes the face of the band, and they start calling it The Raiders featuring Mark Lindsay. And then Mark Lindsay actually ends up having a solo hit with the song Arizona and a minor hit album on that front, which I also own. Not bad stuff at all. Going a little bit more in the country rock direction. But, you get Mark Lindsay producing, and he wants to take it a little bit further. And as you're getting into the 60s, there's no Revolver. There's no Sgt. Pepper from these guys. There's no SF Sorrow. There's no first Pink Floyd album. You're not getting that from these guys. But they're hearing these things. They're influenced. You get phasing. There's one of my favorite songs of all time by the Raiders is Tighter. To me, Tighter sounds like a Bird song that has a bit heavier production and has this phasing washed over it, kind of like the track Old John Robertson by the Byrds has that same sort of phasing over it. And just what a wonderful song. It's a love song. It's a lightweight topic, but it's a cool 60s song. And these guys would do, I should note that these guys would do multiple arrangements, multiple takes. Mark Lindsay was getting involved in the arrangements on these songs. They played with the idea of calling themselves Pink Puzz. During the psychedelic era, they were actually thinking of sort of we're gonna float the balloon of changing the name to the band Pink Puzz by releasing Paul Revere and the Raiders alias Pink Puzz when Let Me comes out. Let Me is a great rock and roll song. You're starting to get almost pushing toward Robert Plant type screaming. It's just a catchy, moving tune. It's not as heavy yet as Led Zeppelin stuff, but honestly, I love tracks like Let Me, and I love it. I love tracks like Kicks. I love tracks like the list actually goes on and on. And one of my favorites, it starts getting a little heavier. These guys start getting a little heavier. The lyrics are starting to be a bit important. You're getting a little bit of experimentation with some sort of light psychedelia with like their Arabian Nights track and some of the other things. They're bringing in some of the bit more progressive pop, which is cool, while still mainly being a rock and roll band. They're associated with wheeled vehicles to the point where, and I didn't realize that I packed and brought 2 copies of this album with slightly different covers with me to Italy from the United States with my 5,000 or so albums that I packed. But yeah, Hard and Heavy with Marshmello. I've got they're on a tank at this point because the Doom Buggies and the Raiders coach isn't quite cool enough yet, so they're just going to ride a tank to let you know that they're getting harder and heavier. And some of the irony of this is that one of my favorite songs of theirs, which is on this album, is Cinderella Sunshine. And Cinderella Sunshine, let me see if I have it here. That is one place where I could help you. Instead of just saying which I am, just buy Raiders stuff. If you see it at the thrift store, if you see it at these used to be dollar bin records. A lot of these, especially the greatest hits, were dollar bin records when I was coming up and buying stuff in the 80s and 90s, which is just criminal, but great for you, the record collector. Yeah, Cinderella Sunshine has a single version, which is the version that you want. Now, I'm not hearing it on Greatest Hits Part 2, and I'm not hearing it on Hard and Heavy, where it first appears in LP form. There's a single version of this. This is I have this demonstration copy, not for radio airplay, of a Columbia Hall of Fame re-release where Cinderella Sunshine is featured as the B-side of Don't Take It So Hard. But there is also an A-side release of Cinderella Sunshine. And this is a record, if you pick one of those up, you could go to Discogs and get this for about $3 US plus postage or less for a VG Plus copy, $2.99, something like that. The Cinderella Sunshine that I think of is it's a minute 58 seconds. It's a Ramones length song on the single and is way heavier and has, I think, a cooler group backing vocal. I don't mind the ironically titled softer, longer, slower, hard and heavy with marshmallow version of Cinderella Sunshine. But man, top 5 Raider songs for me, Cinderella Sunshine single version is going to be on there. And unless you get some, CD collection or that sort of thing that has alternative takes. And this is a band that was talented enough musicians, talented enough arranger, and worked with talented enough producers that there are multiple versions of their songs out there on different releases. So sometimes when I was doing the prep for this video and I was revisiting some of these albums, I was thinking, oh, this is interesting. The version on the Greatest Hits album is a little bit different than the one on the LP release, and I'm sure the single might be a little different. There's a pretty complex recording history and catalog for this band, for a deceptively simple band. So if you want to be a completist, or you really want to shred your speakers close to it, Cinderella Sunshine is where I might go with that. There's also, they were so connected to car culture that I've got this rarity on a single. I also mentioned I did a video on Mexican Rumble, which is this early 90s one-off Mexican rock and roll compilation where the collector threw in, even though they're American, they're not Mexican, he threw in one of the 2 promotional songs for the Chevelle and Corvair, this Columbia Special Projects SS396 that was sent to auto dealerships and is fairly rare. You can hear that by buying this single, which I'll look it up for you and stick it in the video, but it's going to cost you more than the Cinderella Sunshine, I believe. Probably won't break the bank, but I've got this pristine collector's copy here that I got from a soul collector, mostly, who also, like so many of those guys was into the car culture stuff, the Jan and Dean and the Beach Boys, and picked this up as well. So, and from Mexican Rumble, I knew what it was when I saw it, and I knew I wanted to keep a copy. But just such a great track that you're going to have a harder time hearing otherwise from Paul Revere and the Raiders. Again, maybe there's some completist CD compilations out there, box set or something where you could find that. And then you start to get, you're getting a little heavier still with when you get to Raiders Collage. This is a bit of a beat up. These albums all sound great, but the cover's a little bit beat up on this one. And they are moving. They're growing up a little here. They're not wearing the matching revolutionary suits anymore, and they're sounding heavier. And this track, Just 17, that's on Collage and is also on some of their other collections. Just 17 is heavy riffing. With some horn hits, and it's a heavy song. if you like, I'm going to say Mountain. It doesn't sound quite like a Mountain Led Zeppelin song, but if you like that heavier kind of riffing, I could see Just 17 appealing, or some of the other tracks on Collage, which ironically is harder and heavier than the album titled Hard and Heavy. I could see some of these very much appealing to a fan of Mountain, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, if you like tracks like Rock and Roll, maybe even Immigrant Song. It's not quite there, but that's some heavy riffage, dude. So that's something you might like. And then you get maybe the last album of theirs that you would need. I think this might be from '71. Is Indian Reservation. This is when you have a bit of a lineup change, and you have the massive hit by covering J.D. Loudermilk's Lament of the Cherokee Reservation, Lament of the Cherokee People. You know the song, and the album's Indian Reservation, which again, the entirety of this is not bad music. If you like '60s and the '70s, going a little country rock, if you're somebody who likes the direction that the Byrds were going, if you like a lot of the Groundhogs, maybe even some of the less psychedelic H.P. Lovecraft stuff or something like that, you're gonna like this album. I apparently picked this up at the Princeton Record Exchange in Princeton, New Jersey for $1.99 plus New Jersey sales tax, probably over 20 years ago, easily. But yeah, this has a 93-cent price tag on it. And the first Greatest Hits album also has a fun little, because they were on TV all the time, Monkey Style. They didn't have their own show that was branded as their show, but they were on Dick Clark stuff, and were on TV a lot, and we're kind of goofing around, and we're America's band, and they were a talented band, I have to say, and they recorded a lot of cool rock and roll stuff. But you could get, this was a dollar bin record all day when I was collecting in the 80s and 90s. Probably not so anymore. I'm going to do a little thing where I'll scroll the prices for you in the video, which is, I think, the best that I can do for you for the Raiders, because I'm telling you to just buy anything. There's a Greatest Hits Volume 2, which has some of the later stuff when it gets a little bit more complex, a little bit more heavy. For the most part, really good stuff. And again, cheap records with quality music that I think gets overlooked and underrated. And then there's this 2-record set, which I actually paid. I lied to you. It looks like I paid $7 for this at some point. Super clean promo copy with the time sticker. Double album of so much great stuff. It's a repackaging, I think, of Spirit of '67 and Revolution. These tracks like I Had a Dream, 1001 Arabian Nights, Our Candidate, Undecided Man, Hungry. Hungry is another one of those somewhat menacing for like 1965, 66 garage tracks. Hungry kicks. There's some swagger. There's some swagger in those songs. If you like some of the Stones material, where things like Under My Thumb and Stupid Girl and that kind of thing, these are comparable songs with some really full production. It is sort of that early to mid period Beach Boys meets mid '60s Stones production. That's exactly Melcher aimed for that, and he hit it. So this video is probably going to be less specific and less specifically helpful to you than most of the upcoming 8 videos I have left to do in this series, where I'm going to look at the discographies of the bands that I named in the underrated video. By all means, check out that underrated video if you've not yet seen it, so you can see what the other 8 groups that I named are. I'm hoping once every few days to crank out some of these. I had a little procrastination with the Raiders one, partially because I had a big discography of theirs to look over, and I had to kind of decide what the format for this mini series of videos was going to be. And we had some other issues as well to deal with. And I had to relaunch the channel, and I have a whole video up with a reintroduction to the channel about how I had to do the relaunch, which really set me back 2 or 3 weeks with the work I'd like to do on the channel. So the next one should be coming out faster, especially because most of those other 8 groups have less of a catalog that I'm going to recommend to you. One exception to that is going to be the Ventures, who actually have more albums that you should consider buying than the Raiders do. But I'm going to sign off, and then but don't you stop watching the video yet, because we're gonna scroll through what the pricing is right now for VG Plus copies on Discogs in the UK, the EU, and the US, not including postage for the whole catalog, the run of stuff that you should be interested in. Let's say, from the Raiders catalog, which is going to be about 65 through 71. There's a lot of albums, including the greatest hits. I hope you find that useful. So my buying guide for this band is yes. I don't think, for the most part, if you enjoy, mid to late 60s music, you should not be disappointed by this, and you should not be put off by the uniforms or the fact that they're not getting the critical acclaim. Maybe they should have been. So this is Chris from Punk and Paisley. I'm signing off, but there will be the data to follow in this video, so don't stop it yet. And I'll remind you to keep on rocking in the unfree world.